Hello student, my name is Rochan Chandra. I am an MPhil candidate in the Department of Criminology, Raksha Shakti University, Ahmedabad, India. Today I'll be talking to you on space transition theory of cybercrimes. To begin with, let me give you a brief background about the founder of space transition theory and the idea behind developing this model. Space transition theory was developed in 2008 by K. Jayashankar. It is one of the influential theoretical formulation in the criminological literature and perhaps the most frequently cited papers in cybercriminology today. This theory views the emergence of cyberspace as a new locus of criminal activity and explains the causation of crimes in the cyberspace. The development of space transition model was a vital influence to the evolution of cybercrime theories. It came at a time when no other social scientist could adequately explain the overall phenomenon of cybercrimes as efficiently as Jayashankar did. The theory was initially published as a chapter in a book titled Crimes of the Internet, published by Apprentice Hall. Until now, there had been several empirical investigations to test the utility of this theory. While some scholars have highly appreciated Jayashankar's insights to address cybercrimes, others have criticized that few propositions of his theory are somewhat difficult to test and may be specific to certain forms of cybercrimes. Space transition theory explains the nature of the behavior of the persons who bring out their conforming and non-conforming behavior in the physical space and cyberspace. Cyberspace transition involves the movement of the person from one space to another. Example, from physical space to cyberspace and vice versa. Space transition theory argues that people behave differently when they move from one space to another. Now let's see the propositions explaining criminal behavior in the cyberspace. Persons with repressed criminal behavior in the physical space have a propensity to commit crime in cyberspace, which otherwise they would not commit in physical space due to their status and position. Next one, identity flexibility, dissociative anonymity, and the lack of deterrence factor in the cyberspace provides the offenders the choice to commit cybercrimes. The third one, criminal behavior of offenders in cyberspace is likely to be imported to physical space, which in physical space may be exported to cyberspace as well. Next one, intermittent ventures of offenders in the cyberspace and the dynamic spatio-temporal nature of cyberspace provides the chance to escape. Next one, strangers are likely to unite together in cyberspace to commit crime in the physical space, whereas associates of physical space are likely to unite to commit crime in cyberspace. Persons from closed society are more likely to commit crimes in cyberspace than person from open society is the last one. The conflict of norms and values of physical space with the norms and values of cyberspace may lead to cybercrimes. Now let's understand the above propositions in more detail. Discussions. The first proposition says that persons with repressed criminal behavior in the physical space may have a propensity to commit crime in cyberspace, which otherwise they would not commit in physical space due to their status and position. In this proposition, Jayashankar borrows the assumptions of Auerbach's model of crime and social status to explain that individuals feel varying degree of self-reproach on engaging in criminal activities. They are generally concerned with their social status in the society based on others' perceptions of their values, and in making their decision they calculate the social and material risks of being a criminal against the comfort of living as a law-abiding citizen. To say in other words, people who are more sensitive to guilt may not endorse a criminal lifestyle. The anticipation of the harm to one's social status and the subsequent embarrassment that it will cause to them generally inhibit the individuals to act as if they are more moral. However, Jaishankar noted that the tendency of individuals to behave in this manner finds relevance only in the physical space. If the same individuals moved to cyberspace, they are least concerned about their status because there is no one to watch and stigmatize them. It is similar to hiding behind a mask, after which there is no fear of facing social humiliation because no one can identify the real personality behind the mask. Such individuals, he believed, stalk, bully, hack, harass in cyberspace. Further, Jaishankar clarified that the term repressed behavior in his proposition does not mean any criminal behavior that is repressed from the childhood, but represents the ulterior motives of the individuals who otherwise cannot express them in the physical space due to their status and position in the society. The second proposition says that identity flexibility, dissociative anonymity, and lack of deterrence factor in the cyberspace provides the offenders the choice to commit cybercrime. In this proposition, Jaishankar describes the behavior of people online while highlighting the concepts of identity flexibility and dissociative anonymity identified by Sulla in his article Psychology of Cyberspace. According to Jaishankar, anonymity has a disinhibition effect, which cut two ways. People sometimes use it to act out unpleasant need or emotion, like harassing other people, sexualizing children and women, and hurling abuses through texts and symbols, or it allows people to be brutally honest and open about personal issues that they might fear discussing in face-to-face encounters. That way, it seems reasonable to say that anonymity is surprisingly useful for the people to attain disinhibition effect. Further, Jaishankar highlighted that when people have the opportunity to separate their actions from the real-time world and identity, it generates in them a sense of safety from the consequences of those actions. Whatever they do or say in the appearance of anonymity cannot be directly linked to them. On venting out bitter feelings, they need not take full responsibility for those actions. And perhaps most interesting of all, people can always convince themselves that those behaviors aren't me at all. In psychological terms, this is called disassociation. Another serious concern with regard to cyberspace is that one can never know with whom he or she is interacting. People can always assume false identity, also known as fake avatar, and continue to chat with you for days, even months, before you finally discover that the person whom with you were communicating is not the one who he claimed to be. In other words, one cannot determine accurately the identity and the information given by the person on cyberspace. Take matrimonial frauds for an example. In such cases, scammers generally create an attractive profile of a woman with a flirtatious tagline in an effort to dupe prospective bridegrooms. That way, the legitimacy of identity and the information given in these sites or any online networking sites for that matter cannot be accurately ascertained. Addressing the situation, Silk and De-mitra argued that the de-individualization is one of the main reasons for the deviant behavior of people in cyberspace. They explained that de-individualization is a psychological state in which one loses his sense of individuality and personal responsibility As a result of this disorder, people can behave less altruistically, more selfishly, and more aggressively. While there can be many reasons for de-individualization, Jaishankar identified that anonymity is the single most important factor that causes de-individualization. He also observed that there are several millions of criminal activities that are going under the appearance of anonymity on a day-to-day basis. Apparently, one of the key factors that urge most members in the society to carry themselves in an honest and non-violent manner is the fear of being caught, a deterrence factor. This deterrence, however, diminishes largely in the cyberspace. And why so? That's because cyberspace allows the criminals to attack their victims even from most remote locations. They need not be geographically proximate to the victims, unlike physical space. Moreover, the harm caused to the victims as a result of the cybercrime is not immediately apparent. Cybercrimes may cause severe damages to the victims, sometimes to the extent of affecting them socially, psychologically, and financially. They may even break the rules of the reasonable and civic expectations of behavior, yet it is not constituted as activities that fall within the purview of criminal prohibitions due to the unique nature of cyberspace. In the third proposition, Professor Jaya claimed that criminal behavior of offenders in cyberspace is likely to be imported to physical space, which in physical space may be exported to cyberspace as well. Prior to the year 2000, cyber criminals were acting alone. They committed a vast majority of computer-related crimes in an individual capacity. The main motivation that drove them into solo offending was publicity and notoriety, and not profit. But in the last few years, cyber criminals have turned more professionals as opposed to their previous profile, where they indulged in hacking and other computer-related crimes either as a pastime or sometimes even to earn occasional monetary benefits. They have realized that they can make tremendous financial gains through illegal online activities with relatively low risk. To achieve this end, they have even started to enhance their skills, knowledge, and networks required to operate a large-scale, high-value criminal enterprise, which, when coupled with computer skills, expand the scope and risk of cybercrime. With the arrival of crime mapping technique to crack down on criminals in physical space, a major chunk of people who previously committed theft, extortion, stalking, robbery, etc. have moved to cyberspace to commit same crimes. In fact, they have found that involving in cybercrimes is comparatively more rewarding and less risky than committing traditional crimes. And rightly so. Cyberspace allows criminal gangs to facilitate and cover up their criminal activities. Today, the ease with which the cyber criminals transfer money from one account to other, it seems fairly difficult for the lawmakers and the law enforcement to follow the financial transactions of criminal gangs. Additionally, creating virtual identities also affords increased anonymity to the criminal gangs to conduct their operations effectively. Hence, the second part of the proposition that the criminal behavior of the offender in the physical space is likely to be exported to cyberspace finds ample relevance with the above explanation. Conversely, grooming of children in the cyberspace to victimize them sexually in physical space is a classic example of how criminal behavior of the offender imports from cyberspace to physical space. However, this nature of behavior of the offender is in contradiction to the earlier description of Jaishankar that cyberspace is less open to individuals, less open to individual cyber criminals. Still, whatever may the nature of crime commission, the fact that cyber the criminals are equally using the physical space as well as the cyberspace to perpetrate is very much consistent with the above proposition. In the fourth proposition, Professor Jaya argues that intermittent ventures of offenders in the cyberspace and the dynamic spatiotemporal nature of cyberspace provide the chance to escape. Here, cyberspace, we need to understand the cyberspace is a transit place for most people, including offenders. People do not live in cyberspace. They visit and exit like they do in any other place. This nature of cyberspace allows cybercriminals to move from one location to another, beat the internet address, and engage in proxy server, that is masking their actual location, which makes cyberspace an ideal place for them to commit crimes and thereafter escape. Further, the characteristics of cybercrimes may also vary from traditional crime because cybercrimes has little adherence to spatiotemporal restrictions. With respect to criminal activity, this means that an individual can attack the victims at a distance. The temporal dimensions of cybercrime is also affected as cybercriminals are able to commit crimes in compressed periods of time and potentially across long distance. Due to this dynamic nature of cyberspace, it is also difficult to map cybercrimes. The cybercrimes have virtually reduced the significance of geography because of the difficulty that lies in determining the location of crime. The next proposition explains how strangers are likely to unite together in cyberspace to commit crime in the physical space, and how associates of physical space are likely to unite to commit crime in cyberspace. In last couple of years, internet has become one of the most effective medium for criminal recruitment and dissemination of criminal techniques. The online recruitment of terror outfit ISIS is a classic example in this regard. And why not? As many as several thousands of young Muslim men with history of social and criminal delinquency have joined the Islamic State to engage in armed violence. This rightly establishes the relevance of Proposition A in real-time scenario where like-minded people merge online to spread criminal violence in physical space. Conversely, Jaishankar identified that insider threat is one of the major problems in cyberspace. He believed that a disgruntled employee can potentially destroy the future of a company by spying, engaging in sabotage, or leaking sensitive information. In doing so, they may even take to cyberspace, which hold ample relevance to the Proposition B. Accordingly, the digital attack on Indian websites is also a notable example which reinforces the idea that criminals emerge in physical space to commit crimes in cyberspace. Moving on to the next proposition, it says that persons from closed society are more likely to commit crimes in cyberspace than persons from open society. This proposition of Jaishankar works on the assumption that people from open society have numerous options or avenues to vent out their feelings, such as anger, informal protest and demonstration. But on the contrary, people from closed society do not have such avenues to ventilate their pent-up feelings. Such people, Jaishankar argued, find solace in the cyberspace as they engage in all sorts of criminal activities, including but not limited to online hate messages, which is often inflammatory in nature, in social media, cyber terrorist activities, and posting revenge porn image of ex-partners, etc. And in the last proposition, Jaishankar argued that cyberspace has its own norms and values which may be in conflict with norms and values of different groups of people. While cyberspace is an international space where people from several nations conglomerate, Jaishankar observed that the behavior of people in the cyberspace is not uniform. It varies from one person to another. This difference in behavior, he believed, can lead to conflict among people in cyberspace, ultimately leading to cybercrimes. In general, it is worth remembering that Cybercriminology is the study of causation of crimes that occur in the cyberspace and its impact in the physical space. Jaishankar academically coined the term cybercriminology for two reasons. First, the body of knowledge that deals with cybercrimes should not be confused with investigation and be merged with cyber forensics. Second, there should be an independent discipline to study and explore cybercrimes from a social sciences perspective. If we go through the appreciation of the theory, we will find that it has been cited for more than 50 times in the past 6 months. Some of the popular comments that are worth citing here are as follows. It will be interesting to see how this theory tests empirically, but the mere development of the theory is something for which Jaishankar should be commended. Next one. Space transition theory is one of the few theories that created specifically to address cybercrimes. The most popular theory for explaining cybercrime. Now let's look at some of the criticism on space transition theory. Scholars have not theoretically addressed or empirically tested space transition theory's core proposition. In order to better understand the utility of this theory as a whole, additional research would be necessary to study the overlap between crime in the real and virtual worlds. Research studies examining the specific elements of this theory would be necessary in order to have a better understanding of its accuracy. For example, research on the life course of cybercriminals, including the desistance of stage, would be necessary to provide support for proposition 4. Although several of the propositions are sensible and are supported by basic characteristics of the internet, example proposition 2, focusing on the anonymity of the internet, other propositions are somewhat difficult to test and may be contrary to either the current research on cybercrimes or be specific to certain form of cybercrime. For proposition 1 to be supported, there would need to be a large subsection of individuals who commit cyber deviance but do not commit deviance in the physical space because of their status. This time it would be, in fact, it would appear that many of the individuals who commit some form of cyber deviance are the same individuals who commit traditional crimes as well. Regarding proposition 5, recent research has shown that American street gangs use the internet for symbolic purposes. For example, name recognition, status, etc. and for functional purposes to plan crimes in either the virtual or real world. In addition, research is needed to examine whether rates of cybercrime vary based on the political landscape of the nation. Taken as a whole, actual empirical assessments are needed to validate this perspective before any sweeping statement can be made as to its legitimacy. A lesson of ST theory may be that it is difficult to create a theory that attempts to explain all forms of cybercrime. Their differences are greater than their similarities in some contexts, indicating that this theory may only be successful in certain contexts. To sum up, it is apt to recognize that space transition theory is one of the radical theories. All criminology theories have one distinctive common factor, that is, they all have been conceived to examine criminality in the physical space and not in cyberspace. If a single physical space theory do not explain all physical crimes, why do space transition theory need to explain all cybercrimes? It is to understand that space transition theory is a starting point of new theories of cybercrimes. For more details, one can always check this journal popularly known as International Journal of Cybercriminology, which is founded by K. Jaishankar. Thank you for listening. I hope you found this lecture useful.